I was a dog walker for the SPCA Montreal for 18 months. They fired me this spring. I prepared a series of videos that go through all of it and also ask some questions from the shelter's management, such as why are they paying so much to third-party fundraisers. This is a summary of these videos. Throughout, you will see these small rectangles pop up, like this one for episode 1. There are links to the full episodes in case you'd like to listen to the full story with all its juicy details. I walked dogs for the SPCA Montreal during the city's nice winters and the COVID pandemic because I couldn't have a dog at home. Eventually, I moved into a building that allowed me to own one, and I thought I hit the jackpot a week before that move last spring when I met Stella, a stray dog hosted at the shelter that I walked. She seemed a perfect fit, and the shelter agreed in particular that she was small and tame enough not to need a fenced yard, and therefore that I could adopt her to live with me in my new apartment. There was a huge problem though: time. The shelter did not want to host her an extra 2 days to allow me to make the bridge until my move. They also didn't want to let me host her at a relative's place in the meantime because it would be too traumatic for her. To say the least, I was really shocked, considering all the time I had given the SPCA Montreal over 18 months. So I tried to get some real answers beyond the one-line email they had sent me. When I finally got a hold of the person in charge to explain the decision, she argued that the shelter was full, and yet that there were tons of dogs elsewhere waiting to come in. This was absurd to me for a number of reasons. The main one being that I could see there was tons of space in the kennel as I walked in its corridors. Shocked by the lack of gratitude and absurdity of the situation, I couldn't help thinking that the shelter preferred to get rid of a dog 2 days earlier than to ensure it had a better home over the 4,000 days or so of its life. So I felt like the shelter was basically telling me that I wasn't even worth 0.05% more than a complete stranger. That's what you get when you divide 2 by 4,000. And I shared that with the head of volunteers over there in a tongue-in-cheek email. They didn't like the email and they fired me within hours. No phone call, no meeting, just a curt email claiming that I had been offensive. Now, besides the fact that there was nothing offensive in the email in the first place, the shelter was firing me 1 month before an expected surge in abandoned dogs due to the July 1st move-in date in Montreal. A flood expected to be so bad, I had actually agreed to train junior walkers for the shelter to get them up to speed faster. So when I found out that I was being fired, I fell off my chair. And that's how I went from being a happy volunteer to a sad and blacklisted volunteer. And because of all this, I would rather stay anonymous, since I don't know if these videos will lead to some revenge actions by the SPCA Montreal that could make me or my loved ones suffer. After being fired, I dug into the shelter's operational and financial numbers. I originally just wanted to understand why it claimed to be so full. It led me to eventually ask the management team a number of questions that remain unanswered 3 months in at the time of these videos. I want to understand how the shelter can claim to be so maxed out in terms of capacity when it has experienced an almost 3 times larger drop in dogs sheltered over the past few years when compared to the average Canadian animal shelter, and that even before COVID. Looking at their financial statements, I wondered who the third-party fundraisers who have received $5.5 million over the 5 years ending 2019 were. Why are they used in the first place? It is concerning because without more data, some may worry that senior managers are somehow personally benefiting from these money flows. Weird also because the SPCA Montreal seems to be just about the only animal shelter of importance in Canada using this. I had also asked them 4 other questions that I skimmed through due to lack of time, but they cover management incentives, the vetting of strangers' adoption applications, the training of volunteers, and most importantly, diversity. Since the shelter has a member of the visible minority as a chairwoman since 2017, I am perhaps naively convinced that the shelter has a diversity study. For some reason, though, I cannot even get the SPCA Montreal to just confirm its existence or absence.